Tensions continue to surge along the Lebanon-Israel border, where a fragile ceasefire coexists with continued military strikes, warnings of escalation, political divisions, and deep uncertainty over the future course of this conflict. This comes as Hezbollah rejects the peace talks and vows to confront Israel at all fronts. Remember, Hezbollah has rejected Lebanon's push towards direct talks with Israel. Hezbollah leader Naim Qassem calls it a grave sin and warned that it could destabilize the country further. The Iran-backed military group has laid out 5 core conditions for peace. Let's tell you about them. They want Israel to stop the aggression via land, sea, or air. They demand IDF's full withdrawal from all occupied territories, the release of all prisoners, the return of displaced people to their regions, and the reconstruction of war-damaged areas. Now, Qassem's comments and demands come at a moment of increasing political and military activity inside Lebanon. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun, meanwhile, has taken a very different line. Responding sharply to Hezbollah's statement, he defended diplomatic engagements with Israel as necessary to end the conflict. In fact, he's accused Hezbollah indirectly, saying that those who have dragged Lebanon into this war have committed a treason. Meanwhile, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has warned that Hezbollah's defiance would bring catastrophic consequences for Lebanon. The situation on the ground remains fragile and volatile. Remember, the Israeli military began strikes on Hezbollah infrastructure in Lebanon's Bekaa Valley and other southern areas. The IDF said the operations targeted military-related sites. Military activities have intensified as well along Israel's northern frontier. Army vehicles and tank convoys were seen near the border. The deployment, remember, comes after Israel remains on a high alert following warnings of a hostile aircraft in the region. Heavy smoke continued to billow from southern Lebanon. This was seen from the Israeli side of the border, where fighting between Israel and Hezbollah continues. This also comes after both sides accused each other of breaching the fragile truce. Evacuation orders have been issued for several towns north of the Litani River, which fall outside the designated buffer zone, but they're now being treated as active operational areas. This yellow line, which is a buffer zone, extends roughly 10 kilometers into the Lebanese territory. It remains under Israeli military control, with residents warned not to return to their homes. The human toll of this continuing conflict has been growing as well. Just a day before the latest developments, Lebanon's health ministry reported that 14 people were killed in Israeli strikes in the south. It marked the deadliest day since the recent ceasefire began. An Israeli soldier was killed, in fact, as a military helicopter sent to airlift wounded troops that was targeted after Hezbollah fighters launched a drone strike against Israeli forces. Prime Minister Netanyahu also paid his condolences. The conflict has now taken a heavy toll, with more than 2,500 people who've been killed and over 7,700 wounded in Lebanon since it began. The United Nations peacekeeping force has confirmed the death of an Indonesian peacekeeper in a recent blast, with a preliminary UN probe indicating an Israeli tank shell as the cause. Lebanon now finds itself divided between diplomatic engagement and armed resistance, with the government pushing towards negotiation and Hezbollah flatly rejecting any direct contact with Israel, as both sides entrench their positions. West Asia remains on an edge. Uncertainty over the ceasefire persists as yet another week has passed by without a fresh round of direct US-Iran talks. Amid this, Tehran has reportedly put forth a new proposal to end the war. As per Al-Mayadeen, Iran has conveyed a three-stage proposal to the US through Pakistan. The first step would entail a formal end to this war and guarantees from America to prevent its resumption. Subsequently, the next stage would see both sides discuss management of the Strait of Hormuz, extremely crucial. Iran will reportedly initiate talks on the nuclear issue only after this. Now remember, this comes even as US wants to take control of Iran's stockpile of enriched uranium. Even Axios, the media outlet, reported that Iran wants nuclear negotiations at a later stage only after the ceasefire is extended for a long period, the Strait of Hormuz is opened, and the US blockade has been lifted. However, this may remove America's leverage to convince Iran to stop uranium enrichment. Reports suggest that President Donald Trump is set to hold a Situation Room meeting with his top national security and foreign policy team on Monday. Meanwhile, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, who's currently in Russia, blamed America for the failure of the Islamabad talks. Abbas Araghchi claimed that negotiations failed to make progress owing to excessive demands and incorrect policies of United States.
The US approaches caused the previous round of negotiations, despite progress, to fail to reach its goals because of the excessive demands and incorrect policies. It was therefore necessary to hold consultations with our friends in Pakistan to review the latest situation.
Araghchi also underscored the significance of the Strait of Hormuz in the current scenario, terming it as an important global issue. A day earlier, Araghchi met with Oman's Prime Minister Sultan Haytham bin Tariq Al Said to discuss the security in this strategic waterway, as well as diplomatic efforts to end the war. During this meeting with the Iranian delegation in St. Petersburg, the Russian President Vladimir Putin told Araghchi that Moscow would do everything that it could do to help secure peace in West Asia. In fact, he also lauded the courage shown by Iranians in fighting for their sovereignty. Due to the West Asia war, speaking with the media, Abbas Araghchi claimed that US has requested negotiations as it hasn't achieved even a single goal. In fact, he also added that Iran is looking into this request.
From our side, we will do everything that is in your interest, in the interests of all nations in the region, so that peace is reached as soon as possible. You know our position very well.
In another development, a top Iranian official claimed that its new proposed law would designate the armed forces as the authority to manage the Hormuz. In fact, he hinted at charging transit fees in rial.
The Islamic Republic of Iran's dues in this strait must be paid based on the national currency, the rial, and under this plan, vessels and cargo belonging to the Zionist regime are not allowed to transit under any circumstances.
Now, even as the Araghchi-led Iranian delegation visited Islamabad twice during the weekend, remember, it ruled out any direct talks with the US. This prompted Donald Trump to cancel Witkoff and Kushner's scheduled Pakistan visit. On his part, though, Trump has cited long travel hours as the reason behind this decision. In fact, he's also asserted that talks can be held over a phone call if Tehran reaches out to America. On the other hand, Iran's parliament speaker Mohammad Ghalibaf took a swipe at Trump's claim that the US holds all the cards. While referring to disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz, he hinted that Iran has the ability to block the Bab al-Mandeb Strait as well as harm the Gulf pipelines. And this is not all. Ghalibaf also indicated that the United States had already used its strategic petroleum reserves. He issued a veiled warning as well to the American consumers about a further spike in prices during the peak summer vacation season. Meanwhile, the United States continues to face the flak from its NATO allies as well over the Iran war. For instance, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has mocked America for its lack of exit options. Take a listen.
I cannot see what strategic exit the Americans are now opting for, especially as the Iranians are obviously negotiating very skillfully. or rather, very skillfully not negotiating and letting the Americans travel to Islamabad, only to leave again without any results. An entire nation is being humiliated by the Iranian state leadership.
President Donald Trump and other top officials had a close shave at the annual White House Correspondents' Dinner as a suspect named Cole Thomas Allen ran past a security checkpoint at the venue and opened fire at a U.S. Secret Service officer. Now, the security lapses at this particular event have come to the fore. Take a look at this report for more details.
Sounded the shots fired. The Secret Service is now in charge.
The stage was set for an eventful night at Washington Hilton on the 25th of April, with Donald Trump making his first ever appearance as the US President at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. What followed was a shocker. Guests in the hotel's international ballroom ducked for cover under their dinner tables as gunshots were heard outside. It was a security nightmare as the entire US top brass was in attendance. US President Donald Trump, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of Health Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent, and other members of his cabinet had to be evacuated, and that included the US Vice President J.D. Vance. The suspect, Cole Thomas Allen, ran into a security checkpoint where he was apprehended after opening fire at a US Secret Service officer. But how did this all pan out? Allen was reportedly staying at this hotel, which allowed him easy access to the terrace level, armed with a shotgun, handgun, and several knives. The suspect tried to get very close to the stairs leading to the concourse level, where the international ballroom is located. This is where journalists, Trump, and other officials were sitting. Now, usually when so many top officials gather in one place for a function, it is designated as a national special security event, and the US Secret Service is put in charge of security. However, reports suggest that there was no such designation for the press dinner. While the Washington DC police handled road closures and traffic outside, there was no clear responsibility for the security of the hotel itself. The US Secret Service was charged with protecting only the ballroom and the immediate perimeter around it. In his alleged note sent to his family members before the attack, the suspect also mocked the lax security at the event venue. In wake of this security lapse, Trump made a fresh call for building a high-security ballroom within the White House complex and even called for dropping the court case in this matter.
I didn't want to say this, but this is why we have to have all of the attributes of what we're planning at the White House. It's actually a larger room, and it's much more secure. It's drone-proof, it's bulletproof glass. We need the ballroom. That's why Secret Service, that's why the military are demanding it. They've wanted the ballroom for 150 years for lots of different reasons, but today's a little bit different because today we need levels of security that probably nobody's ever seen before.
This third assassination attempt within 2 years is prompting a rethink of Trump's security measures. As per Fox News, discussions are underway at the highest level about whether Trump needs to start wearing a bulletproof vest for future public events. As the probe intensifies with the suspect set to be produced in court, this incident has raised uncomfortable questions regarding the security of the US president. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
All right, let's get to the breaking news coming in at this moment from the United States of America. The First Lady Melania Trump has now lashed out at Jimmy Kimmel. He had done a joke that has now resurfaced on social media following the Saturday shooting incident at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Let's first tell you what Melania has posted on X. She has urged Jimmy Kimmel's broadcaster ABC channel to take a stand Let me quote what she's written. She said, Kimmel's hateful and violent rhetoric is intended to divide our country. His monologue about my family isn't comedy. His words are corrosive and deepens the political sickness within America. That's what she's posted. Now let's give you a little background to why she's put this out. Last week, remember, during Thursday's episode of Jimmy Kimmel Live, that's the show he hosts, he had parodied the dinner in advance. This is the White House Correspondents' Dinner. This was a recording that he had done, delivering his own alternative comedy monologue as the event's MC. And among the gags that he did during that show, Jimmy Kimmel had joked that the First Lady, Melania Trump, had the glow of, and I quote him, an expectant widow. And days later, of course, we all know that the entire world knows that a gunman opened fire at the annual Washington, D.C. event, that is the White House Correspondents' Dinner. He was, of course, apprehended from the scene and there was a lot of chaos. But clearly, this deepening rift between Jimmy Kimmel and the Trump administration now once again coming to the fore. Remember, back in September 2025, the ABC channel had suspended his show as well, Jimmy Kimmel Live. And now once again, this entire rift coming to the fore with the First Lady now lashing out at Jimmy Kimmel, saying this was something that was not expected and that she has condemned this remark. Of course, we still await what Jimmy Kimmel has to say on this. But remember, this was just a few days prior to this White House Correspondents' Dinner that happened and, of course, the subsequent shooting attack. This was recorded much earlier, but this is the joke that Jimmy Kimmel had made, calling Melania Trump an expectant widow. All right, moving on. A California man is accused of storming a gala dinner attended by top American leadership. He will appear in court on Monday, remember, as the investigation continues into the shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. More details are now emerging about the shooter's motivations. Now, the suspect was identified as Cole Thomas Allen, apparently aimed to kill Donald Trump and other senior officials in the administration. As per the New York Post, minutes before the shooting, he sent an anti-Trump manifesto to his family members. He wrote that his targets included officials in the Trump administration, prioritized from highest ranking to lowest. But the list did not include FBI Director Kash Patel. In the manifesto shared with the police by his brother, Allen has repeatedly made references to allegations of rape and sexual offenses. He writes, and I quote him here, "I'm no longer willing to permit a pedophile, a rapist and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes," apparently referring to the US president. He is believed to have attended a No Kings protest as well in California, where he attended college and worked as a teacher. Allen also lamented about the lack of security at the venue, the Washington Hilton Hotel. That's where this dinner was taking place. In the manifesto cited by the New York Post, the shooter allegedly wrote that Iranian agents could have brought even more devastating firepower without anyone noticing it. He says how the security at the event was all outside, focused on the protesters and the current arrivals, and not on the guests who were already present there. In fact, he had checked in, as per him, as a guest a day before this event and even claimed that he walked in with multiple weapons. Now, authorities confirmed that Allen had bought 2 handguns and a shotgun and stored them at his parents' residence. He traveled across the country from California via Chicago to the capital.
It's been about 12 hours or so since the incident happened. And what we believe happened, at least as of now, is that the suspect traveled by train from Los Angeles to Chicago and then Chicago to Washington, D.C., where he checked into the hotel where the Correspondents' Dinner was at in the last day or two. We believe that the 2 firearms he had on him, he had purchased within the past couple of years. And there's also We're still investigating motive, and that's something that will necessarily take a couple of days at least. We believe that he was targeting administration officials in this attempted attack.
Now, as per the manifesto, the shooter intended to use buckshots over shotgun slugs in order to minimize the casualties. He also added that the hotel guests and employees were not targets at all, while he will target law enforcement only if they shoot at him. Alan comes from a highly technical and academic background. He's a mechanical engineer and computer scientist who also worked as an independent game developer. Now, authorities say that he was based in the Los Angeles area where he worked part-time as a teacher. Alan is a graduate of the prestigious California Institute of Technology and had previously participated in a summer fellowship program at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. According to the NBC News, in the note that was sent to his family members before the shooting, Alan had apologized to his parents, his colleagues, and the bystanders for what he was about to do. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is facing mounting pressure both personally as well as politically ahead of the general elections that are due in the country in October this year. Two of his main rivals, former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett and the opposition leader Yair Lapid, have announced a new political alliance, a move that is aimed at mounting a strong challenge to Netanyahu's government.
We are in a fateful period. Fateful moments require bold steps, and that is what we are doing. I am happy to announce to you that, together with my friend Yair Lapid, I am taking the most Zionist and most patriotic step we have ever taken for the sake of our country.
Naftali Bennett said that if his government wins the elections on his first day in office, a state commission of inquiry will be formed into the 7th October Hamas-led attacks, also stating that they will limit the term of Israeli Prime Minister to 8 years.
We are here because this country needs unity like air to breathe. We stand here together for everyone who believes in democracy, believes in the deep Jewish foundation of the state, believes in the values of Zionism and in our right to this land.
Both Bennett and Lapid served as prime ministers in a rotational agreement as part of a coalition government that they had formed back in 2021, bringing an end to Netanyahu's 12-year continuous run as the prime minister of Israel. Now, this development comes at a time when Israeli opinion polls show Netanyahu's alliance losing seats in the Knesset if elections were held today in Israel. According to a latest poll by Israel's Channel 12 News, figures of which were revealed prior to Bennett and Lapid merging their parties, Netanyahu's coalition would get 50 seats, while the opposition would garner 60 in the Knesset, which is one short of the 61 that is needed to form a government. And that's not all. Netanyahu is facing challenges personally as well. Remember, Israel's President Isaac Herzog said that he will consider Netanyahu's pardon request in his long-running corruption trial only after all the efforts to reach a plea deal are over. Netanyahu, in fact, was set to testify on Monday in his corruption trial. However, just around 90 minutes before the hearing was scheduled to begin, it was abruptly cancelled following a request from Netanyahu's attorney, citing the Israeli Prime Minister's security schedule without elaborating or clarifying any further on the details for this postponement. With that, we are going to be telling you what's coming up on the other side. Donald Trump's aggressive war stance and unpredictability has led to countries spending more on their military. We're getting you details in a bit. And India is under extreme heat wave as climate change and human activities raise the mercury level across multiple cities. Global military spending surged to nearly $2.9 trillion in 2025, marking the 11th consecutive year of growth. Researchers say that rising insecurity and the ongoing conflicts are driving countries to boost their defense budgets. According to a new report by the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, the world's top three military spenders, United States, China and Russia, together accounted for over $1.48 trillion, which is more than half of the total global spending. Despite being the world's largest spender, America actually reduced its military expenditure last year. According to this report, U.S. defense spending fell to $954 billion, which is a 7.5% decrease as compared to 2024. Analysts say that this drop is largely due to the absence of new financial aid packages for Ukraine. However, the decline may be temporary, with American lawmakers now approving over $1 trillion in spending for 2026. The CIPRI report also says that China is the world's second largest defense spender. Last year, it spent $336 billion on its military. Where does India stand? Well, India is the world's fifth largest military spender, as per this report, and the country has spent about $92 billion in 2025, as opposed to Pakistan, which spent roughly $11.9 billion. This means India is spending almost 8 times more than Pakistan. In 2024, India's military expenditure was $86.1 billion, while that of Pakistan's was $10.2 billion. Europe, meanwhile, has emerged as the key driver behind this global increase. Military spending across Europe, including Russia and Ukraine, jumped by 14%, reaching $864 billion. Experts point to the ongoing war in Ukraine and the reduced American engagement in European defense as the major factors behind this surge. Russia has increased its military spending by nearly 6% to $190 billion, while Ukraine raised its defense budget by 20%, reaching $84.1 billion, which is nearly 40% of its GDP, one of the highest proportions in the world. The report also states that in West Asia, spending has remained relatively stable despite the ongoing tensions. Regional military expenditure rose slightly to $218 billion. Now, while most countries increased their spending, both Israel and Iran recorded declines. That's right. And this was largely due to reduced conflict intensity and economic pressures like inflation. Israel is the 11th largest spender on defense, spending $48.3 billion on its military last year. On the other hand, you've got Iran, which spent roughly $7.4 billion last year. Experts say the rising global military burden reflects a world that is growing increasingly uncertain. The share of global GDP dedicated to military spending has now reached its highest level since 2009, highlighting what researchers describe as a widespread sense of insecurity shaping national priorities. As the world's attention remains focused on West Asia, a deepening humanitarian crisis continues to unfold in Gaza, which is defined by a collapse of its most basic lifeline, water. It's been more than 6 months since a ceasefire was declared, but for the people of Gaza, the conditions on ground continue to worsen. Instead, conditions on the ground are deteriorating with growing shortage of water. In mid-April this year, a series of deadly incidents speaks volumes about how fragile Gaza's humanitarian network has become. Israeli forces killed a water engineer and 2 drivers who were tasked with delivering water to displaced families. 2 more drivers working with the United Nations Children's Agency were shot dead at a key water collection point in northern Gaza. These were not isolated casualties. They were part of a pattern that is systematically undermining access to water for hundreds of thousands of people in the region. The consequences are immediate and they are severe. Without reliable delivery networks, families are now left struggling to find even the most basic supplies. According to humanitarian agencies, the average person in Gaza now has access to just 7 liters of drinking water per day. That's far below the minimum standard required for survival in emergency conditions. Even that limited supply is not guaranteed for many.
We can't find food. We can't find water. What should I say? What should I say? What should I even speak? We can't find shelter and not even phone charging. I wish you would come and see my condition in the shelter. Come and look at my children's miserable situation. Come see the sorrow, misery and hardship. Come and see.
But the crisis extends beyond over 2.5 years of conflict. Gaza's civilian infrastructure has been destroyed. Water pipelines have been destroyed. Desalination plants have been damaged as well, or they've been forced to shut down. Sewage treatment facilities have collapsed, raising the risk of contamination and waterborne disease. In overcrowded shelters and makeshift tent camps where thousands of displaced families are forced to live in close quarters, poor sanitation and limited water access are now driving the spread of preventable illnesses. At the same time, restrictions on the entry of essential goods, including fuel, spare parts, soap and hygiene supplies, are compounding the problem. According to local and international agencies, around 90% of Gaza's population now relies on humanitarian assistance. Large parts of the territory remain devastated, with many families living in temporary shelters or tents. Children growing up in heartbreaking conditions. Aid deliveries have increased under the ceasefire, but they remain limited relative to the scale of the need. The political arrangements expected to follow the truce have yet to take shape. A proposed administrative body backed by Donald Trump, the so-called Board of Peace, has yet to establish a visible presence on ground. Its absence has raised a lot of questions about whether the plan to hand over governance of Gaza was ever fully achievable, or if it has been overtaken by events elsewhere in the region. All of this unfolds just days after Palestinians voted in local polls for the first time since 2006. We now turn our attention to Africa, where two escalating crises have left both Mali and Somalia reeling. While Mali reels from deadly internal attacks, piracy has seen a resurgence off the coast of Somalia. In the latest Al-Qaeda-linked group, Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam wal Muslimin reportedly claims the Mali army has surrendered to its fighters. In the Gao region of Mali, our next report tells you more about the region and its details.
Mali's military leadership faces a severe test after coordinated nationwide attacks killed Defense Minister Sadio Kamara. This has also intensified fears of instability in the country. The violence has spread from the capital to the northern town of Kidal. Reports say rebels have seized the city. Mali's General Assimi Goïta, who leads the junta, has not appeared in public since attacks began on April 25th. His absence is raising fresh questions about control within the government as security forces are struggling to respond. Despite ongoing military operations in parts of the country, the loss of the defense minister has weakened the administration at a critical time. Experts call this the most significant challenge to Mali's rulers in more than a decade. The junta government says a suicide attacker rammed an explosives-filled vehicle into Kamara's residence near Bamako. A gunfight broke out, leaving him severely wounded. He later succumbed to his injuries in hospital. The Mali government has declared 2 days of national mourning as tensions remain high across the country.
Armed terrorist groups attempted attacks in several towns across the country. They were immediately met with strong resistance thanks to the professionalism and commitment of Malian armed forces. Several terrorists were neutralized and equipment destroyed. Sweep operations are ongoing.
Mali has endured years of jihadist violence, but this wave of attack marks the worst crisis since the military takeover in 2020. Al-Qaeda-linked group Jamaat al-Nusrat al-Islam wal-Muslimin has claimed responsibility for most of the attacks. Mali's opposition has warned that the country is now in serious danger, while the United Nations has condemned the violence and called for coordinated international support. Across West Africa, there are growing demands for a united response against terrorism.
All countries in the sub-region should come together to eradicate this scourge, terrorism, that is harming the region, harming Mali, and also harming collaboration.
Besides Mali, separate threats are intensifying across different parts of the continent, more so in Nigeria and Somalia. Maritime agencies are reporting a spike in piracy off Somalia's coast after a cargo vessel was seized and redirected into territorial waters, marking the fourth such incident in the past week alone. The latest hijacking took place just 6 nautical miles off Somalia, while an oil tanker called Honor 25 remains under pirate control with a multinational crew on board, including an Indian citizen, Pakistani nationals and Indonesians. While in Nigeria, insurgency continues to plague the West African nation. Suspected Boko Haram terrorists stormed 2 villages in northeast Nigeria, killing at least 20 people. At least 12 people were killed and a church was allegedly burned down by suspected Islamic State terrorists following an attack on a Christian community in Adamawa state. The parallel crisis across the various parts of Africa underlying the widening pattern of instability across the continent. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
All right, let's shift our focus now to the tech battle that is playing out. A high-stakes legal battle between Elon Musk and OpenAI is now heading into trial today, with the jury selection underway in California to decide whether Elon Musk was misled over the company's founding mission. Now, this case centers on claims that OpenAI shifted from a non-profit model to a for-profit structure. The trial taking place in California's Oakland pits the world's richest man against a company that he once helped build. Musk has accused OpenAI of betraying its original non-profit mission, claiming that he was misled about its goals when he invested around $38 million in its early days. Court documents show that Sam Altman had promised to keep the organization focused on public benefit, but the company later shifted to a hybrid model with a for-profit arm. It's Microsoft as a major backer and is preparing for a public listing. This legal dispute highlights a broader rivalry as OpenAI's ChatGPT competes directly with Musk's AI venture xAI. Elon Musk is now seeking up to $134 billion in damages, and he's asked the court to force OpenAI back into a full non-profit structure and cut its ties with Microsoft. The case may also see testimony from Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. However, OpenAI has rejected these claims, arguing that Musk's lawsuit is driven by competition and a desire for control. With the jury now being selected today, a verdict is expected by late May, which could clearly have major implications for the future structure, the governance, and the direction of the global AI industry. All right, moving on, a major warning from the world's highest mountain range. The Hindu Kush Himalaya is losing its snow reserves at an alarming rate. A new report by International Center for Integrated Mountain Development says that snow cover has fallen nearly 28% below normal, and that the lowest ever recorded was this year. Often called Asia's water tower, the Himalaya feeds rivers, remember, that sustain nearly 2 billion people, including millions across India. Take a look at this next report for more details.
The snowcaps of the Hindu Kush Himalaya are shrinking, and with them a critical source of water for much of South Asia. The latest snow update report shows a sharp decline in snow cover for the fourth straight year. Scientists are raising alarm over systemic decline. Seasonal snow acts like a natural water bank. It stores water in winter and releases it slowly during the hot summer months. This meltwater feeds major river systems including the Ganga, Yamuna, and Indus, which are lifelines for millions across the Indo-Gangetic plains. For India, this is where the threat turns real. These rivers irrigate crops, supply drinking water, and support industries across northern states. Less snow means less water flow during peak summer, just when demand is at its highest. Glaciers like Gangotri are melting faster. Scientists warn of a double impact: short-term flood risks followed by long-term water scarcity. The impact could ripple through India's economy. Agriculture in the northern plains, especially water-intensive crops like paddy, depends heavily on this meltwater. A weakening flow could threaten food security and livelihoods of several farmers. The energy sector is also at risk. Nearly 80% of India's hydropower potential lies in the Himalayan region, and reduced water flow could impact electricity generation. Meanwhile, as surface water declines, dependence on groundwater is likely to rise. Experts warn this could trigger over-extraction and push water tables to the brink. What happens in the Himalayas does not stay in the Himalayas, from drinking water in cities, to irrigation in farms, to power in homes. The impact will be felt across India if Himalaya's snow cover continues to plunge.
From snow, let's talk about heat. A severe heat wave has engulfed large parts of India. Temperatures have surged, breaching the 40 degrees Celsius mark in several states and even reaching as high as 46 degrees Celsius in some regions. Data shows that 98 of the world's 100 hottest cities are currently in India.
The country is at the center of an intense heat wave episode. Record-breaking temperatures are raising serious concerns about the impact. In northern India, temperatures have crossed 40 degrees in multiple states, including Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, New Delhi, Haryana, and Punjab. Authorities have issued advisories urging residents to take necessary precautions. In the Kashmir Valley, thunderstorms accompanied by gusty winds are predicted at several locations, offering some relief from the prevailing heat.
February, we had seen almost no precipitation over entire Jammu and Kashmir and many parts of Himalayan states like Himachal and adjoining Uttarakhand. Because of this, the temperatures have been risen to almost 10, 12 to 15 degrees Celsius above normal.
People are being advised to stay hydrated, avoid prolonged exposure to direct sunlight, and limit outdoor activities during peak hours in various parts of Jammu division. Health experts warn that excessive heat exposure can lead to serious conditions, including heat stroke. Tourists visiting the valley say they are pleased to be here during the peak heat wave across India.
Yeah, the heat. So in some ways, I've been traveling from the east to the west of India, fairly up north. But I've just come from Amritsar, where it was getting quite hot. But of course, that has its own beauty, as every part of India has. It's got its own sort of charm about it and stuff. But I think here is quite. It's like a lovely. I think I feel very lucky to come at this very like ripe season. Everything feels very perfect. Like the weather's perfect, and it's quite nice. I mean, it kind of reminds me of the UK when it gets quite chilly at night as well. So it's nice to have a bit of a taste of home, because everywhere else is very hot, isn't it?
We have come from Mumbai, where temperatures are around 37 to 40 degrees centigrade. So it's far more pleasant here in comparison. Back home, it's difficult to even step outside at this time of day. We had expected it to be quite cold here and thought we'd need jackets, especially in April, but it's not that cold at all. In fact, I'm enjoying an ice cream without needing any warm clothing.
The Met Department has issued an advisory urging farmers to suspend all farm operations on April 28th. Hot and dry weather is expected to persist over next 24 hours in districts such as Jammu, Kutwa, Samba, Riyasi and Udhampur. Residents have been advised to avoid direct heat exposure during peak hours and to stay well hydrated by drinking fluids.
India has been gripped by severe heat wave conditions with temperatures soaring from 40 to 46 degrees at multiple locations. States like Haryana, Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan as well as the Union Territory, the National Capital New Delhi, are experiencing severe heat wave conditions. The Met Department says for the next 7 days the temperatures can go further up, creating severe intense heat wave conditions. People have been advised in all these states to take precautions and not to go out in sun and also keep themselves hydrated. If we talk about Jammu and Kashmir, the Met Department says areas like Kutwa, Samba and Jammu city are experiencing heat wave conditions as well, and for the next few days the temperatures will rise there as well. In the Kashmir Valley, the temperatures are 2 degrees above the normal. Meanwhile, the Met Department has predicted rainfall by the afternoon and also gusty winds across the Kashmir division. With video journalist Feroz Idris Sloan for WION World is One.
Monaco's iconic street circuit once again became a time machine for motorsport fans as classic Formula One cars from the 1950s till the 1970s returned to the track for the iconic street race. From front-engine pioneers to early rear-engine revolutionaries and 3-litre machines of the golden era, this rare spectacle brings together decades of F1 heritage. Take a look. At a time when Michael Jackson's biopic is making waves globally, the late music star's iconic white rhinestone-encrusted glove is going up for auction in California. The bidding starts at $50,000 and the piece is expected to fetch around $100,000. The glove was gifted to Michael Jackson's personal artist, Paul Bedard, in 1984 after he created an artwork at Neverland featuring Jackson alongside other famous figures, all wearing his glove.
Michael first wore the glove, kind of debuted it at the Motown special in 1983. So really, as that album was kind of taking over the world, Michael was performing wearing the white glove. So it was really associated with his Thriller album.
The glove also featured in the recently released Hollywood biopic Michael, where the pop star's nephew, Jafar Jackson, essays his role.
The glove is just made of crystals and it's so iridescent. They're stitched closely together. So the way it was made, where the light kind of captures it, it was specifically made to be kind of iridescent and capture the light. And it's just really stunning in person.
Meanwhile, another white glove of Jackson is up for auction in France with an estimated price of 100,000 to 150,000 euros, which is nearly $178,000. With the biopic Michael running successfully in theaters, collectors are now hoping that a resurgence in his popularity will make Jackson memorabilia more sellable again. A taste of Italy has stretched across London. More than 100 Italian pastry chefs have broken the Guinness World Record for the longest tiramisu, unveiling a dessert measuring an astonishing 440.58 meters. Take a look. And on that sweet note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas. Thanks very much for joining us tonight. Bye-bye. Good night.
Five states, one powerful voice. From Tamil Nadu to West Bengal. Kerala to Assam. Every vote shapes the future. Get the election pulse only on WION. WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power, only on WION.
In-depth coverage of global issues broken down into facts, figures, and simple words. Backed with analysis from field experts who truly matter, because we believe in decoding the real picture for you. So you get a much wider and deeper understanding of stories from around the world, a 360-degree analysis. An award-winning documentary series, week after week creating the maximum impact. Watch WION Wide Angle at these times on WION. World is one. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime is your front row seat to darkness.
In this rapidly changing world, is your health keeping pace? Best practices and breakthroughs busting the hype with real insights. The timeless power of yoga and ancient healing. Good food, good mood. Small steps, big impact. Your health matters. Only on WION World is One. Because nothing matters more.
In West Asia, every move shifts the world's balance. Wars, ceasefires, alliances, power never stands still. From Tehran to Tel Aviv, from Damascus to Doha, the West Asia Post cuts through the chaos to reveal the region that shapes the world. Because what happens in West Asia never stays in West Asia. This is the West Asia Post, the region's story, the world's impact.
Get the latest updates.
Destroy their
Breaking
missiles
news.
and raise their...
Credible, clear, continuous. Experts across aisles. Diverse voices, one platform. WION World is One.
WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power, only on WION.
Vielleicht nur